So I'm really intrigued about this one. I always am, because you make it sound so easy, the way you present it, Anthony. But we're going to talk about the pension transfer options. And this is a big one for people because no one stays in the same job for the most part for their whole career. They're kind of jumping around. So, but if you've been there for a length of time and you do have some investment in some sort of pension, RSP or whatever, what do? So you're going to kind of
That's what we're going to talk about today.
Perfect.
For one reason or another, you might find yourself changing careers. And if your previous job, you had accumulated a pension, as soon as you jump ship to a new employer, you're going to get some papers in the mail which gives you pension options. And the pension options you're going to have are 3 options that are going to be in that report that you get mailed out to you. And these 3 options always confuse clients, and I get a lot of calls when people are transitioning from jobs.
Sure.
What should they do? You can either roll that pension to your new employer. If they have a current pension in place, you could transfer it. You could keep it with your former job and keep it in that pension, or you can transfer it to your own Locked-In-RRSP. That's what the LIRA stands for.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
So what we boil it down to is either you can decide to either keep it as pension money or transfer it into your LIRA. And this is what I'm going to walk you through. The pension, by leaving it in there, you're going to have a guaranteed income at a certain retirement age, whatever that paperwork tells you. It'll say, for example, I did a recent one where the client had $155,000. He was in his early 40s of accumulated pension. So the papers that he received, he was able to take that 155 and put it into his own locked-in RSP and control the investment himself. Or he could leave it with the pension company, and when he retires at age 65, he's entitled to $17,000 a year for the rest of his life. Now, that guaranteed income might sound desirable, but when you pick it apart and see what kind of rate of return do I need to earn, or does the pension company have to earn to supply me that income stream? When you do the math on this, and you have to use a hypothetical life expectancy so you kind of can figure out the math formula, but you'll realize that most pension companies only need to generate between 2% and 3% rate of return to supply that monthly income. So if you have an opportunity to get this money out of your pension and now in your control, you might have 20 or 30 years before you're actually ready to retire. You can invest this, and if you can generate a return that's higher than 3%, you're probably going to come out a lot further ahead at retirement time.
So question, if you go from this employer to this employer, and this employer has a really good investment plan, or are they kind of all the same? Like, because then it might be worthwhile.
We're talking here about it's called a defined benefit pension plan. This is like if you work at the hospital or if you work for the city. Teachers have these types of pensions where you have no control over how the money is managed. You just get a promised, a guaranteed monthly income. And you'll get pension statements that will show you at a certain age what your projected income is looking to be. And so people just don't see the rate of return because it's not required. It's promised to them. They don't have to, deal with the investment. And that could be a benefit to keeping it with the pension, but you could be leaving a lot of money on the table.
So is this your suggestion, do you think?
Well,
or it depends on the circumstance?
It depends on my client's personality type, because one of the downfalls of having a LIRA is that you have to manage it yourself. But if I'm managing it for you, that's where I come into play. But the benefit or the downfall or the risk with a LIRA is that you have access to this money much earlier than if it was locked in the pension and you had to wait till full retirement age. With a LIRA, you can access it as early as age 55. So if you're bad with money and you have the temptation to withdraw, you could be spending your pension money during your working years.
Good idea for that personality
Not if you're a
type.
spender, you're a person that's constantly in credit card debt. That's probably not going to be the best option for you. But for most people who are responsible, building up a bigger LIRA is a lot better than leaving it inside the pension. But usually you don't get that opportunity to take pension money out unless you're changing jobs. So this is actually an opportunity more than it is a negative. Another downfall about having it as a pension is that when the pensioner dies, when they pass away, there's a spousal survivor percentage. So they don't get 100% of your pension. Your pension is now reduced, and the pension company keeps that. And every pension, you have to look at what your survivorship percentage is.
That doesn't seem fair.
Well, that's just the way it works, But this is a big downfall. If the pensioner dies early, then their spouse is receiving a reduced amount, and it ranges from 60 to 70%. So you could easily be losing 40% of your pension if you die prematurely in retirement age.
Right, whereas with the locked-in RRSP,
that money is now
it's
under
100%.
100%. Whatever you don't get around to spending, 100% of it can be passed down to your spouse. So for the benefit of the spousal survivorship percentage on the LIRA side, also with controlling on your withdrawals on the LIRA, just because you have access to it at age 55 doesn't mean that you have to take it. If you have income from other sources and you're not needing this money, you could postpone and defer it for even longer than your traditional retirement age. And that will help you avoid taxes, because if you're pulling out income when you don't really need it, all you're going to do is have more income tax to pay at the end of the year. So depending on your situation, if you want to access it early, you can. If you want to postpone it, you can. But this is the opportunity that comes with changing jobs, is getting that pension money unlocked and you put it into a LIRA, which is an RSP account that's locked in till age 55. That's how it works.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, great perspective. Good things to think about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because we don't think about our money. I was talking to both Jim and Joe, the Ride for Dad segment earlier, just exactly about that, right? Is that at 20, in your 20s, you don't think about putting money somewhere for retirement. That's like a long way away. But if you did, you're going to be laughing in your retirement and retiring at a much younger age, and we've talked about that before too. Anthony, thank you so much. Great info. Always putting it in perspective, making it so easy for people to understand. Cap Financial Group, you can find them up in Flamborough. You can email Anthony at capfinancial.ca. You can find them on the web, capfinancial.ca, and you can always call 905-297-1179.